using refined and statistically tested algorithms to arouse the lowest instincts in the most intelligent and the highest instincts of the least intelligent. We have quite a program actually lined up for you here tonight. Murray Saul will be on with a special guest commentary on who knew what when and what it all means. And a little later we'll find out about this thing that keeps coming up on the program. We keep getting calls. I can't seem to lose these people who are interested in this book, the Necronomicon. Every week we get, over the last couple of months, we get a call or two about this. And so finally, I don't know if you recall, a few weeks back, I requested of our audience, over at the other station, in fact it was, I requested of our audience that someone out there listening might be interested in investigating this. And in fact, we found someone, a volunteer, who spent some time at the library and researched this thing. Finally, we're going to find out exactly what this strange and weird book, the Necronomicon, is all about. Apparently, it's very popular among certain high school students of all things, especially at Catholic schools. People into this book, I suppose, primarily because the authorities there prefer that you not be into it, right? That's that makes sense. That's right. That's the way these things go. So we're finally going to find out what this thing is about. No more guessing. We're going to have the answer. We're going to find out if H.P. Lovecraft really wrote it. If so, for what reason? Everything. That in the second hour here on Livewire. A couple pieces of news here to lead off with. This first from USA Today came out of the weekend edition. And here we go again. You know, we had the water tower in Fostoria, where the rust stains there were supposedly a face of Jesus. Well, now, and there have been just a regular run of these things, it seems, over the past few months. Remember, we had that, where was it? Somewhere in Florida, I think it was, the condo with the Jesus face on the porch, burned in the wood on grain on the porch. Well, now we have another one. In Chicago, the Virgin Mary is apparently weeping on canvas. That's right. More than 10,000 people have flocked to Chicago's St. Nicholas Albanian Orthodox Church this week to view the painting in which the Virgin Mary appears to be crying with her child Jesus. Moisture also is oozing from her hands. There are tears on it, and it's wet. It's something to see, according to postman Harry Hoffman, who was there viewing the icon. Church officials say they have no physical explanation. It started on Saturday morning, the feast of St. Nicholas, said the Reverend Philip Kufos, who's the church pastor there. There must be something intensely spiritual, mystical, metaphysical, whatever you want to call it, happening. What is it? Who knows? He asks rhetorically. The Greek Orthodox Diocese of Chicago calls it an appeal from the ever-Virgin for an awakening to the spiritual and return to the church. Church visitor Cynthia Herzelli calls it a Christmas miracle. She goes on to say, the Virgin is crying for the bad this year in this world. She wants everybody to notice and be good. I hope it works, she says. Me too. Absolutely. So, there you go. Now we have, you can add this to the list. We have the crying Virgin Mary in Chicago. And an unrelated story, this one from the Plain Dealer. A man upset because his younger brother had used 6 rolls of toilet paper in 2 days shot and killed him. According to police, Nathan Hicks, 35, was charged Monday with the second-degree murder of his brother, Herbert, 33. Nathan Hicks, who called police after the shooting Monday, told police he had bought an 8-roll package of TP on Saturday and became enraged on Monday because Herbert had used 6 rolls. The Hickses apparently quarreled over this issue, and Nathan took a .22 caliber rifle and shot his brother in the chest.
It doesn't take much these days, I guess.
Well, you got that right, which leads perhaps into our commentary. We of course, have been, I think purposely, and I've been responsible for this, have been avoiding this issue, whatever you want to call it, Iran Gate or Iran Amok or whatever. I guess it's, some people are calling it Iran Amok. I sort of like that one, Iran Amok.
It does have a ring to it.
Well, anyway, we searched the world. We scoured the countryside for the one person who could unravel this whole thing and figured out. I know the whole thing is very confusing. You watch network television and it makes no sense
It's pretty
at all.
exciting. I'll tell you, the CNN ratings have to be just incredible.
You got that right.
It's the best soap opera that you could ever wish for.
So here he is, Murray Saul.
Good evening. The traffic report is the fast lane is closed indefinitely. There are just too many potholes. More moderate routes are advised. And stay tuned for updates. For the last 6 years, we've had Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, almost live from Washington, Camp David, and of course the ranch. Larry Speaks practices Robin Leach's accent in private. But now there's a hole in the curtain and bodies are being carried out the back door. Is it a coincidence that Ivan Boesky, Don Regan, the Marcoses, General Motors, Michael Deaver, most unions, the whole oil industry, Drexel, Burnham, Lambert, and the First Lady have all had better years than 1986. We've accepted arrogance as a positive moral position. We've been on the biggest binge ever. Straight from Haight-Ashbury to Rodeo Drive without stopping for gas or changing the oil. Junk bonds brought a whole new go-kart. We supercharged it with deregulation, put Star Wars in the gas tank, and greased the pavement with ground-up antitrust laws. Budgie deficits is driving the vehicle. So now we have Junkgate. This is not a couple of spooks in the basement screwing up. This is the collapse of his junkadency. Slogans and homilies rather than policy. We won't do business with terrorists. Junk macho. Just say no. Junk solutions to huge issues. Graham Rudman will fix it. Junk reform. Star Wars will work. And even if it won't, let's do it anyway. Junk tech. The Contras are freedom fighters. Bull junk. Our glorious future is as a service economy. Junkonomics. We may not be ahead in manufacturing things like we used to, but we are the world leader in burgers, pizza, and soda pop. Don't they have a word for those commodities? Russia, under Gorbachev, is changing its style. He's not as paranoid as previous Soviet leaders. He's going to be a world figure for some time. We ought to adjust to that. Amy Carter and Abby Hoffman are demonstrating together. What does that mean? Cleveland seems to be hanging in there. It's great that the Indians were sold to Jacobs, and it's time we solve that dome matter already. Springsteen showed what we already knew. He's all rock and roll. Simply Red was my fave in '86. And finally, this is a season that brings our personal lives to the forefront. There is a special warmth as we honor the softer values, peace, family, concern for the less fortunate, and hope. Season's greetings, everyone. Resist some of the greed, and weren't those Browns the best?
Oh, yes, they were. Yeah. And that feels good, too, after so many years.
Absolutely. Sure there was not a moment of doubt today.
Yeah, it's working.
That's right, for sure.
I guess I was skeptical, but boy, Kosar, he's all right.
Really serious. And there's a coach out there someplace.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if you'd like to comment on any of these issues or ask Murray a question, he'll be here for a while. 578-1985. If you're around the local North Coast area here, around the state of Ohio, 1-800-323-1985. 5. Now, we promised all weekend that in our promo for your appearance here, Murray, that you'd explain what it all means. I suppose you touched on that a bit. Are we? You think we're going to have it's certain we're going to have a Democratic president next time? And
well, I think Bush has been wounded. He's still hiding. Nobody sees him, hears from him, doesn't have very much to say, but his chances have been cruelly wounded. There are Republicans that are trying to create a distance. Dole is certainly acting like a candidate. The Senator Lugar from Indiana has created a distance. These are people that are in the committees that are serving this issue. Durenberger from Minnesota,
sure. Now that guy
is my hero. He's like the baker of this particular matter. Like Howard Baker was a Republican, but grew in serious stature. Now he is a candidate for 88, and here comes this issue. I've seen him being called in on television shows as someone who has been there. How this will affect his candidacy, I don't know. But the Democrats do have something, but they're in terrible disrepair.
Yeah.
The Democrats don't know what's happening.
Everyone, though, pretty much realizes that Reagan, going back to the central issue here, everyone pretty much realizes that Reagan knew about this, right? I mean, that's really not...
I think it's pretty clear
I think
that
so,
he
too.
was...
So what this is really all about is we're going to find out whether the Teflon...
Teflon has turned into Velcro. Everything is going to stick.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely.
So far it seems like he's resisting this
No.
thing.
His presidency he's quacking. He's limping and he's quacking.
You don't think he's handled it well?
He can't handle it well. It was a debacle. This country should not be run like that. We have no credibility in international matters. There are 100 countries that are involved in this ridiculous matter. And if it was a style, it's so much bigger. That's the point that I'm making here. It's everything.
What do you make of this, caller?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say, how great the Browns did today.
Yes.
It was unbelievable, But about what Murray's talking about, it really is a shame, that these types of things go on in a country that was as great as it was.
Well, here we had one of the strangest things that's come out of all of this is we had the Attorney General on the one hand giving Reagan apparently legal advice, saying it's all right to sell arms to Iran. And at the same time directing another branch of his organization to prosecute these private folks from California who are doing the same thing.
The shadiness has no bounds, and the scamming and the money just falling out of things. And now they're talking about contributions that went to people who supported the Contras that were running for office.
And even the Canadians are in it now.
There is another little something I'd like to drop in. I think there should be a form of an opinion offered by either a court or some body, which really goes like, we disapprove. I don't know if you broke those letters and didn't dot the T's, but this is unapprovable. The behavior is not acceptable for the President of the United States. Just no way.
Well, everybody's pretending that it's so far.
This is not going to go away. This is not a matter. You cannot put the genie back in the bottle. He's out.
I just want to say that I hope that it doesn't go too far and it's not too big of a shakeout, because we do have to keep the government in existence to some extent.
Well, yeah.
We've showed that this government can take an awful lot of bashing. Now,
but we can't seem to get a president that can ride out a term without a major scandal.
That. We have not had it. There is something about the atmosphere in that place. It makes people believe their own hype. Arrogance does just go along. And then we've had the bumblers. Ford reminded me of the 7th grade substitute teacher who never comes in. He's never in charge of the class.
That's perfect.
And Carter never really understood how it worked. And what was really going on. So we've had different kinds.
Actually, Carter probably one of the smartest and most competent presidents we've had,
in many ways,
wasn't able to communicate it to the public.
Well,
All right.
Let me just say that I really do like your program. It's a shame what's going on with the government. It's great what's going on with the Browns.
Yes.
And I'll just sit back and listen.
So there are compensations.
The playoffs are definitely in the picture, and the people that I were with were excited. It might be an all-home advantage kind of a situation.
That would be great. All right. How about you?
Hey there. I just got a comment about sort of the Browns, but more in the lines of their pregame show, like before the game. And what happened was, they had a little overview of Cincinnati, and they did some stuff in Cincinnati. Then they went to Cleveland, right? And then all of a sudden, they're showing how a lake was dying and doing flashbacks, the fish were dying and stuff like that.
How dare them?
Oh, I'm telling you. And, they're trying to give Cleveland a little more of an up. But they were showing old photographs, and then you hear a little laughter in the background and stuff. And I thought, they're trying to plug Cleveland, but here they're sort of just stabbing it again.
Yeah.
Too bad.
I don't know. I think the town's on the up. I think we're doing pretty good.
I do too.
All right. Thank you for your words.
Okay. Bye.
Good night. It's Livewire on 98.5 NCX.
Hello, from one Steve to another.
Well, hello, Steve.
Hi, how you doing? I wanted to talk to Murray about 3 things, really. One, I think President Reagan should be impeached. I mean, I think pretty soon we're going to find...
You think it's going to go that far?
I think it could. I mean, I wouldn't be at all surprised if we find out later that the Soviet Union was involved in it.
I'm certain back there someplace, whether they were doing what we wanted them to do or they were scallywags in a different manner, that's something else.
Yeah.
And there's 2 things I want to talk about on Fleetwood Mac-related issues.
Fleetwood Mac, sure.
Why is it that none of Stevie Nicks' solo albums, why is it that none of her solo work has ever really gotten any good recognition? And
well, they've all been monster sellers. They've been hits.
And she's certainly had videos that I've seen a lot on MTV and loved. And
sure.
But, I mean, it's like you don't hear too many of her concerts on the radio anymore or anything. And also, do you think this will be Fleetwood Mac's swan song, their next album, whenever it comes out? Or do you think they'll stay together?
Well, they should have broken up 3 years ago, at least according to my calculations. They seem to have lost that particular energy, but they've kept on considering themselves a group. And she has not had an album in a while, and usually when that happens to an artist, you don't hear as much from them as you do when they have current product out there.
And I was wondering if you also knew, I heard that Stevie Nicks checked into the Betty Ford Center, but I don't know.
Oh, no kidding, her too, huh?
I don't know the reason for it.
I read that Jerry Lee Lewis checked himself out of there.
Yeah.
There was too much regimen for him. They got him up in the morning, they assigned him tasks to do, and he just got himself out of there.
And I was just wondering if you could comment on that.
On which now?
I have nothing to say on that. I don't know anything
And
about
I hope Fleetwood Mac's new album, if any of you ever find out when it comes out, I hope it's going to be a success for him. You think it might be?
Sure, it could.
Sure.
They've had their share of success.
And hey,
wrap it up here, would you?
I'm not from Cleveland originally. I was a Bengals fan. It was really a heartbreaking game today, but I just want to congratulate the Browns and hope the Bengals still get into the playoffs.
I suppose partly it is victory is sweet because it's been so long coming, and even I think around the country people want to see an underdog win occasionally.
For sure.
Yeah. All right, it's your turn. Hi.
Good evening, Church. What do you think about Fleetwood Mac? Huh. Okay.
Oh, no. We ought to get Nancy, take that guy's number. Let's get him on for the full 2 hours. How about
Yeah.
Murray, you have always been an observer of the passing parade.
Yes.
Yeah. And you, going back to, you were around during the beat era and before, so
Yes.
you've certainly seen these things, these cycles come and go. Where are we now? And especially with regard to this Reagan business.
I'm looking for that next generation. We've been dominated by the kid who was born in 1950, give or take, 10 minutes. And my little observation of Abby Hoffman and Amy Carter
Yeah, that's right.
demonstrating together. She's a student at Brown.
Yeah.
She's been going to the embassy of South Africa and demonstrating in anti-nuclear type things. She's been running in to Abby Hoffman. They've been talking on the telephone to each other. He's a little bit her mentor in these matters. But the real question I'm asking is there a new generation, somebody born around 1968, is getting out of high school now? And that's when generations have a way of making themselves known.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's an 18-year, 1950 to 1968.
Yeah.
And that would be the one that would be like coming into something now. So there should be artwork that is not mainstream, that is happening, that we'll be more aware of a few years down the road. In music, in all of the arts, things must be happening that we're not real aware of, just as the beats. I mean, things seemed so placid. Eisenhower was president, and it was in the middle of that this new sound was heard, and it had been building during all the placidness. Everybody wasn't placid. And that's what I think should be happening now.
You think we have a minority
and I think,
undercurrent now of something happening that might become a more important mass type?
That as the bubble is burst, the junk bond type of activity that we have been so enamored with.
Well,
I mean, companies swallowing.
Why do you think that's so important? I mean, I suppose most people listen. There are a few probably who understand the implications of these economic things, but most people listen and say, "What the hell? If someone wants to use junk bonds to buy a company,
I
let them do
understand, but
so why
it has
is
been
that
the backbone of everything else.
So why does that? Explain how that comes down to you and I.
Well, corporate America has undergone a revolution. The mega mergers, the throwing away of the antitrust laws, permitting capital cities to take ABC and GE to acquire NBC, and these incredibly large mergers and takeovers and greenmail and all the games and all the stuff that was played in fortunes that were built on no contribution to anything. They didn't make anything. They didn't create anything. They didn't do anything except they shuffled papers around and fortunes. The people who worked at Drexel Burnham were paid incredible amounts of money for putting together junk. And this reflected in much of the other things. General Motors lost money in the last quarter that they talk about. General Motors lost billion, big bucks. This is the company that was the model for the entire world that could do no wrong.
That's right. And supposedly they were, the old phrase, well, what's good for General Motors is good for the United States.
And back and forth, and they thought they knew all the answers.
Well, that's right. It wasn't too long ago.
And steel. And the unions were greedy too.
It wasn't too long ago. This Japanese thing is relatively new. It wasn't too long ago that we were in the same spot as the Japanese. 20 years ago, it was these nifty American companies that were the scourge of the British and the French and the Germans. all of these European countries because our products were so much better and less expensive, and we were our companies were so well managed, and where did that go?
Well,
and we have
we thought because it was true at that time that it would stay true forever. And I never tire of saying it, but I was in Japan in 1947, and they were bombed out in Tokyo. They built this from the rubble. Here we were sitting on the top of the mountain. And look what they did. It is just totally unbelievable. And what we permitted them to do.
Doesn't it scare you a bit, Murray?
Because we just sat by and watched.
That all of our best and brightest people, college graduates, are going into real estate, investment banking, lawyering, these things that, as you say, simply move resources around. They don't generate new wealth. They simply move one person's wealth to someone else, and we're not creating new.
We're not doing it,
or producing new ideas or goods. This is new too, isn't it?
This, finance existed, but not on the kind of size that we've become accustomed to. The $1 billion deal is just a commonplace.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Murray.
Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure to have you here. Hope you'll come back and favor us with more of your commentary.
Thank you.
We'll take a break. Good night. We'll take a break. We have, of course, a look at that mysterious and strange book, the Necronomicon, coming up. Also, the usual hard-to-believe news and no doubt, a spirited free-for-all session. Now, and here's another one. The head of Axlon Incorporated of Sunnyvale, California, seems pleased rather than upset that the Americans for Democratic Action have selected 2 Axlon toys among the 10 on its trash box list. The ADA, calling 1986 the year of the ugly toy, had words of disgust for Axlon's Breath Blasters and Rude Ralph. Breath Blasters are a foul-smelling family that include Victor Vomit, Ms. Morning Mouth, George Garbage Mouth, Death Breath, Mackerel Mouth, and Dog Breath. The ADA says at least one toy store has had to clear them right off its floor because of their offensive odor. Rude Ralph is a repulsive rubbery head with orange hair, orange-green complexion, and a bloodshot eye. When you yank the eyeball, Ralph burps, gags, pukes, and gives you the raspberry. Axlon President Nolan Bushnell says the toys are designed to offend the sensibilities of adults. He says they've succeeded. He goes on to say that he thinks it's all right because it gives kids a drug-free, socially acceptable way to rebel. Yeah. Well, you might want to keep that stuff in mind while you're shopping. All right. Next week, we have we're going to do another sort of a follow-on. We'll have a segment follow-on to some calls that we've received here. We'll have a segment featuring by phone an interview with Ivan Stang. He's the leader, actually one of the founders, one of the 2 founding members of the and current leader of the Church of the Subgenius. And this is the religion that, I guess it's kind of a, it's a put-on type deal, who has that Bob Dobbs thing that you've probably seen around, that guy that sort of looks like Father Knows Best with the pipe. Anyway, it's an organization out of Dallas. They claim thousands of followers, have a major book published by McGraw-Hill. It's paperback called The Book of the Subgenius. Anyway, he'll be on by phone next week. And so we'll find out what that's all about, right from the source. Also, remember, later today, this evening, we will have a report on that strange book, the Necronomicon. Finally, we'll find out what's going on with that. Free-for-all session here in progress. And that means you can call and hit us with virtually any question or comment. It's wide open, and in fact, we have a line open now on the 800 number only. All of our local lines are filled up. One of our 800 lines is open, so if you live outside of Cleveland and you've always wanted to get through, here's a chance to do it before we get rolling. 800-323-1985. For future reference, 578-1985 is the local number. All right, to the phones, and you're on. Hi.
Hi. I had a question for Murray, but maybe you could answer it.
Go ahead.
Is this the first time the U.S. has sold arms to terrorists or to countries, totalitarian societies that we haven't known about?
Good question, eh?
Yeah.
We certainly have sold a few things where it was above board, where it was approved and known.
In the past, the U.S. has done this for money.
Well, I'm sure, and certainly our government may not have been interested in the dollar, but there were all of these intermediaries that certainly were, where, as Murray pointed out, all of this money apparently was, as it was flying through all these channels, some of it was, sticking at each point to people's palms. Yeah, there certainly is that element to the whole thing. Is so greasy and
it is
and crazy.
It's just how can Reagan do this after he promised and then I don't know. It seems so unethical.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate the comment.
Bye bye.
And you're on NCX. Hi.
Hi. Can you tell me what you think of the Browns and if they'll go to the Super Bowl, do you think?
Well, you just heard us talk about it. I think there's a chance. And I was a skeptic.
And do you like Bernie Kosar?
Of course. Who wouldn't? Seeing what he's done. Thanks. And you're on NCX.
Yes, I'm going to talk about Reagan.
Go right ahead.
The only reason I think that there's this big scandal is because Congress didn't know about it. It's been said before that this policy about selling arms to Iran has been going on since Ford, and that Congress didn't know that it was still going on with Reagan, and then they found out about it, and they're just angry and pissed because they weren't included in this little dealing. And that's why it came out, because Congress is being like a bunch of little kids, because if they would have known about it, we would never have heard about it.
Well, if they would have known about it, it wouldn't have happened.
If they would have
recall that this was happening during a time when Congress had forbidden aid to the Contras.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about the Contra stuff. That they wouldn't have approved of. But the selling of the arms to Iran, if they would have known about that, that would have been going on because it happened during Ford and Carter, and they just didn't know that this policy was still in effect during Reagan.
I see. Well, I guess one of the things that's come out here is that the committee that oversees this sort of thing is very angry that at least they weren't told. Mm-hmm. They were saying, "Hey, you could have trusted us with a secret." Mm-hmm. And I think you're right. I think there's two things happening here that are making this so important that Reagan can't seem to. This one isn't rolling off like all of the other mistakes. It seems that the two things are, one, he was so self-righteous. We always hate it, especially when someone who's real it's like when one of these evangelists is caught in an adulterous relationship or something. There's something about that's different from if your neighbor was doing it, because he's set himself up as this very righteous sort of person, right? And here's Reagan saying, we will not deal with terrorists. We're not that sort of people. I'm strong on this issue. I won't work with terrorists or communists and all of this sort of thing. And then here he was doing it. I think that's the one. And the other is the outrage that I think part of the press is saying, hey, Reagan's gotten away with things for so many years. Now we can finally get him on something that the public agrees with us on. And then maybe there's a third point here. Same deal with Congress, where they're saying, they're upset that he didn't, that he specifically, did something that ran counter to their wishes.
I agree that Reagan, is totally contradicting himself by saying, well, we won't deal with terrorists at all, and then goes to sell arms to Iran. But what I'm trying to say is, if Congress would have known about this, chances are the general public, wouldn't have heard about it at all. If Congress would have known about it and approved it, this could have been going on, and we wouldn't have known about it. It's just because that Congress didn't hear about it, and because it does kind of contradict his policy completely, that it's such a big fuss.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's it.
Thank
I really
you.
love your show. Listen to it every week.
Appreciate that.
All right, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
It's Livewire here on NCX.
Yes, sir.
I'm Steve Church, and you're on.
Yes, I have a couple questions here. Can you tell me a little more about the MSB breakup?
Not really. Michael Stanley's going to be on
Oh, is he?
tomorrow, I think. Is it tomorrow? Let me find out here. It's soon. He's going to be on Bernie's midday show. So you might want to listen to that.
Oh, yeah, and I got another thing. I think we should really get behind the Browns by going out and supporting them on Sunday against San Diego. Get 80,000 down there and get them dogs going.
Hey, Nance, when is Michael Stanley going to be in?
He'll be in at 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, is it tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. 10
I'll
o'clock
take
tomorrow
that.
morning, and you'll find out everything.
All right.
All right, thank you. Hello, welcome to Livewire. Hello. All right. Hello, it's your turn.
Yeah, I was just calling about the person who commented on the Reagan and about Congress, too. I just wanted to say that, well, it does contradict Reagan's policy, and I think it was wrong, because, like anybody who goes overseas now, he's putting a price tag on every American's head.
In what way?
Well, that if any person in the Middle East wants to take somebody terrorist, that, we'll give you some money if you let them go. I think that's what he's saying by selling arms to Iran, in a way. And besides that, covering up the part about giving money to the Contras and keeping the whole thing kind of secret.
Well, of course.
Yeah, just wanted to say that.
All right.
Wanted to say go Browns, because
All right.
I think they did really great today.
Indeed. Thank you.
All right.
Good night.
Bye.
And it's your turn. Go.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you what you knew, if anything, about the proposed Superman Museum.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I don't know what the status is. In fact, I'm going to make a note to contact those guys and see if I can get them to come on. For listeners who might not be aware, Cleveland was the birthplace of Superman. Was it two guys?
Yeah, both guys were from Cleveland.
Yeah, these two guys invented Superman, sold it for a very small amount of money to the big company, the comic book company that popularized it. But Superman was first drawn and invented here in Cleveland, and there's a group of people who want to memorialize this fact by producing a special Superman museum here. And I understand that they're doing pretty well. I don't know what's happening lately, though.
Well, I had read somewhere, I don't know where, in maybe a college newspaper or something, that a couple owners of comic book stores were behind this move. And since then, the only thing I've heard is I talked to a person who works in one of these stores, and they had told me that if they get a place for it and some support, that they have a guy who's going to donate a very big amount of memorabilia, comic books, not just Superman, but a lot of old books and toys, and the whole range of memorabilia.
Yeah, it would be neat to have it here, certainly.
Yeah, really, especially as this is the birthplace. We are the home of rock and roll, but we're also the home of Superman.
That's right.
He's been around a little bit longer than rock and roll. And
well, I've made a note here to try to track those guys down and get them on. So we'll find out from the source.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night. NCX, it's your turn.
Yes, good evening, Steve.
Good evening.
Yeah, first-time caller.
Well, welcome.
A very faithful listener. I've listened to you since day one.
Day one?
Day one.
All right.
I know what the first song was when you came on, too.
Okay.
Okay, got a couple questions for you.
What did we talk about the first night? Do you remember?
The first night you had John Gorman and Denny Sanders in.
Oh, all right. Sure.
discussing the new radio station.
Okay, I thought you meant you were going back further than that. All right.
Well, I went back a little further to the first day that NCX came on the air.
Okay.
Okay, last week, I've noticed you've been sounding strange.
I've been sounding strange?
The whole radio station, music-wise, I guess they've been doing work with the equipment, but it's been sounding kind of bizarre from time to time. To say the least.
All right, explain.
Okay, well, I called Friday morning, and they told me that there was being work done out at the transmitter to improve your signal.
Yeah.
And that is why that the volume was going up and down on my radio, and that I would lose a certain channel in the music from time to time, or the quality of the music to be way too much trouble, and it was just splattering.
Well, you're very, I must say, you're very perceptive and astute, because indeed, the folks at the transmitter we're doing some work, and will continue to do so over the next few days.
I see. They're going to make it sound good.
Well, I hope that that's the result.
Well, I listen to it. That's why I know what goes on, and I do listen at work.
All right.
One more quick question.
Sure.
Do you know if anybody is going to pick up the American Top 40 show?
Don't know. We dropped it because we didn't think it was our sort of thing. Frankly, one of the reasons is that Cleveland is way ahead of the country with regard to the songs that are played. We tend to. Cleveland is known around the country, and for that matter, probably around the world, as being a city where new songs are broken, and that means that you hear things perhaps weeks here before you'd hear them in the more conservative cities.
Some of that I can agree with, and some of it I disagree with.
Well, and for that reason, partly because we didn't think the style of American Top 40 fit our station, and partly because the songs were so old relative to the city.
By the time that they get on the 40.
That's right. We decided not to keep it.
I see, but you don't know if any other station is going to pick it up.
Do not know. It's being carried in a lot of cities. Some of the AM stations are picking it up.
Well,
maybe that'll happen
if
here.
you're fussy like me, you don't listen to AM.
Well,
I want FM, no static at all.
Just don't know. All I can tell you is that we dropped it. Someone else might pick it up. Who knows?
I know occasionally when the band is open, I can catch it on Rock 102 out of Buffalo.
Well, if you got a real good radio, maybe. All right. Thanks for calling us up.
Steve, have a good evening. And
you too.
The best of holidays to you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. It's Livewire here on NCX.
Hello. I believe I heard a hidden message in To Be a Lover by Billy Idol.
No kidding.
It was the long version. It's not the extended mix, the other long version. Are you familiar with it? Where he goes superstars and rock and roll
sure.
Inferno.
It's called the Mercy Mix, right? That's the one?
Yeah. In the middle, where there's a woman's voice whispering, I think she's saying a 12-letter word that begins with the letter M, ends with ing.
And it's right at the beginning?
No, it's in the middle.
We'd have to...
And there's a woman's voice whispering, and I was asked not to say the word on the air. It's a 12-letter word, starts with M, ends in ing, and it's an activity you do by yourself, or with yourself, more accurately.
All right, and it's about halfway through, huh?
Yeah.
Well, all right, I'll make a note about that. We'll check that one out, too.
And I can't wait to hear about the Necronomicon, because I went to Walden Books to try to find it, but they didn't have any.
Well, the lowdown is coming up.
Okay.
The fellow that volunteered to do this is in fact a high school teacher, so he's I would say a fairly competent researcher and a reliable source, and we'll get the lowdown.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, this gets less terrifying calling you every time.
Oh, well, I guess it's I suppose it is tough at first. It's hard for me to understand what it would be like on the other end. But I can imagine it would be a little tough to get up the nerve and then to be waiting on hold, knowing that you're going to be. It's sort of like going to the doctor for a physical or something. You have to, you don't know what the hell they're going to do to you. And you're waiting in the reception, and then you get called. Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm glad you found the nerve to call, and I appreciate you pointing out the business with with Billy Idol.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Night.
Night.
And it's your turn on Livewire. Hi.
Hello there. Everybody's been talking about Mr. Reagan and all these things and bad things. I don't know. I think I'd like to mention a positive point is if you look back about 10 years ago, things weren't as good, I don't think, as they are now. And, like mortgage rates.
Yeah, no question. Republicans are good for business.
And gas prices. But you know what I heard about the gas prices was I guess they held an OPEC meeting to try to decrease the production of crude oil so they can raise the prices again. I mean, I don't know. It seems like greed awfully runs wild sometimes. And it's a sort of strange situation. I mean, I don't know. I like the prices as they are. I don't want them to go up. I don't think anybody does.
Indeed. And no one wants interest rates to rise either, for that matter.
Yeah, and the thing about Reagan, I'm not condoning that this arms deal or whatever happened, this fiasco, what happened, was a good venture or anything. I think it was pretty stupid, but I think in a sense, too, you got to sort of, I guess, draw the line to figure out where the press should stop, because sometimes they tend to blow these things up a little too much, and then the thing runs wild like a loose hose or something. I just can't figure it. And it seems like they just blow it out of proportion. So I'll just see what happens. But I think for the most part, I think we're on the up and up. I think things are better. And hell, it's the holidays. We might as well be happy, huh?
There you go.
Okay.
Even if we have to fool ourselves to do so, don't we do it all the time anyway?
Hey, that's why we got charge cards.
Well, I never thought about it that way, but I guess you're right.
Absolutely.
All right.
So long.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Let's grab another here, and it's your turn.
Yeah, back to the Reagan-Iran issue again.
Go.
Do you believe that Reagan knew what was going on with the sales of arms to Iran?
Of course.
You do?
Of course.
Okay, Reagan is saying that he did not know what was going on. Doesn't that make him incompetent as a president? That he doesn't know what's going on with his advisors?
Well, I think ultimately what he's going to finally do when this thing really starts piling up against him, I think ultimately what he's going to decide to do is he's going to say, well, maybe I knew something about it, but I was confused about what we were really doing. He's going to try to use that ploy. I think he's going to claim that he was either he was confused about it, or he wasn't told fully, or something. I mean, he'll find some way to put a fairly good face on it, I think.
But it's his job to know what's going on with his advisors and with his counsel, and he appoints them. So this is like making him totally incompetent as a president. We elect him to know what's going on.
Yeah, so why are we just now realizing this? He's been president for a few years.
Well, I wouldn't have voted for him, but and the last caller, he just said that 10 years ago we were no better than we are now, and that means that Reagan. That means we're on the same level as we were 10 years ago, and we're not getting any better. So therefore, Reagan has done nothing as a president. Anyways, right?
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We will, in fact, have I almost forgot, we'll have a World of Science answer in the second hour as well. You've probably often wondered about this important issue. What happens if you drop a penny from the top of the Empire State Building and it happened to hit someone on the head down below? Would it go through just like that? Or would it be harmless? Answer to that question coming up in the second hour. You're on 98.5 NCX. And you're on Livewire. Hi.
Yes, I have another comment on Reagan. He actually contradicts himself in many different ways, like not just in the Iran deal, but also in many different ways, such as other, quote, terrorists, such as in Northern Ireland with the IRA. They say that they condemn it very much so, but I have other sources that say he's sending arms over there. And then through the Prime Minister, he sets up these new laws that are putting supposed IRA members behind bars. and sending them to England. Well, he started contradicting himself there because I know of arms going to Ireland, but openly he's sort of getting on the English side with the subject. I was just wondering if your comment, like, if he's getting too much behind his words, like he.
Well, I suppose that's the problem with this whole deal, isn't it? Is now we can't believe anything.
Well, he's sort of talking to himself into a hole, isn't he? I mean, he's saying different things that's contradicting what he's really doing. And like one of your callers earlier said, to impeach him. I mean, I don't know if that would really help things, but it might. You know, and I was just wondering, you know, because it's sort of getting out of hand, you know, all the press and everything. But I think it's pretty stupid on his part.
You mean the way he's handling it, or having done it in the first place?
Having done it in the first place. Because he's saying outright to us and all the press before this happened that, you know, we condemn terrorism and all this. But, I mean, like, sort of without terrorism, you know, freedom fighters as it is, that our country might not even be free now because of the fighters like in the Revolutionary War, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I just wondering, you know, I thought I would just say that, you know, to get it off my chest because it really bugs me about him.
All right, appreciate the comment.
Sure thing.
Good night.
Good night.
Livewire, the show. I'm Steve Church here on NCX, and you're on.
Yeah, I have two questions to ask you.
Go.
Okay, first of all, how do you figure out the North Coast Countdown? That's on Sunday morning.
Oh, boy, you would ask me that. Nancy, do you know how they do that? It's probably a combination of requests and a survey of record stores. Is that right? Yeah, that's it. She's shaking her head yes.
Do they write them down or something, like mark down their requests and stuff like that?
Do you know the specifics, how it works? Nancy, can you explain it? All right, we're gonna get the answer from Nancy here. All right, how's it done?
They write down all the requests. They're all calculated, and that's how they come up with the TNT hour, which is on at 9 o'clock Monday through Friday on Spaceman Scott's show. All those requests are written down, and then they're looked at, and that's how they come up with the top 9 tunes of the day. And the same thing is done with the hit list.
So but is it all requests then, or do they factor in record sales too?
Record sales also, and that's the two. That's the two combinations that
That's
they
like
bring
how
together.
they make Billboard's Top 40, stuff like that.
I don't really think that has anything to do with it. Again, that goes back to what we were saying before about Cleveland really being ahead of most of the country. It's almost the other way around. You know, what we do here affects Billboard's Top 40 list, not the reverse.
Because it's like you're playing songs like by the Communards, and they're not even on the Hot 100.
Well, that's because it's our top 40 list.
That's right.
It's the NCX hit list.
That's right. Absolutely so. It's entirely Cleveland and a result of what our listeners want, coupled with the record store thing, which I suppose certainly would include listeners to other radio stations as well. So there you go. That's it.
Okay, my second question is, how did you get involved in the music business? Like dealing, producing, and maybe working in retail or something like that?
Well, working in retail is easy. You go to a record store and apply.
Well, obviously. What about producing?
That's not too tough.
What about producing?
Well, boy, I've known a few people in that field, and it's sort of like this business. Everybody has their own way of getting in. Some people have, some formal education in the field, and they get in that way. Some have a friend in a band, and so they might run the sound for them for a while, and then when the band gets big enough to go into a studio and record, naturally this guy would go in with them and would eventually acclimate himself to the studio equipment by doing it. And work up from there. Some are musicians who find themselves in the studio doing studio work, and then want to get involved in the production and technical aspect. I mean, I suppose it's if you ask 10 people, you'd get 10 different answers.
Okay, thanks for that. And I just want to say, 98 doing a great job.
Well, thank you, and good luck. I hope you make it with the music career.
I hope I do too. Thanks a lot.
Good night.
Bye.
And let's see, we got time to grab another before we take our top of the hour break. And you're it. Hi.
Hi. I'd like to talk about the Reagan arms thing again.
Please do.
I think it actually shows that the people that are higher up in government aren't really as stupid as we'd like to believe they are.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it seems to me they were pretty clever in getting all that money shoveled through all those channels and where they wanted it to go.
Clever, yes, but it's all, you got to judge any project by its ultimate effect. And it's certainly the ultimate effect, the result of this affair is not positive.
Well, I don't know. They did what they thought was right, and they're trying to eradicate communism, apparently.
Well, yeah, I suppose. Well, they had the two things going here, I guess, at once. You know, they had the Contras, which, you're right, they're concerned that the people, the Sandinistas who are running Nicaragua now are communist influenced. That's the one thing. And then the other is the Iranian component of it, and the Iranians are, I don't know, I guess depending on who you ask, they're communist sympathizers, but that's really not the main point of that, I wouldn't think.
No, I don't know. It seems to me that maybe the people in government aren't quite as dumb as we'd like to believe they are.
Looks just the opposite to me.
And I also have kind of a complaint.
All right.
I can't believe you wouldn't let that guy say masturbating on the air.
What guy?
That guy that called up about 5 minutes ago.
I would have let him say it.
I just think that's dumb.
I'm not sure that's the word. Well, maybe it is the word. Actually,
something you do alone with yourself.
Okay. Giggle, giggle.
Yeah.
Hee, hee.
Yuck, yuck.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Bye.
Hope you got the little ones in bed. This is Livewire here on 98.5 NCX. Officially, we are WNCX Cleveland. Let's see here. Which one should we take? How about this one? Okay, it's your turn. Go.
Hello.
Hello.
I called to talk about that Necronomicon.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
It does have some resemblance to some of H.P. Lovecraft's stories, but there's also a lot of resemblance to this guy Aleister Crowley's stuff. He was one of these cultists back in the turn of the century.
That's right. He was an Englishman who was very much into this. In fact, supposedly Jimmy Page was from Zeppelin, was kind of a follower of Crowley, even though Crowley had been dead
I'd read
for a
about
few years.
that.
But in fact, Page supposedly lives in a house that Crowley used to own and all of that sort of thing. So what's your opinion on this? We're going to get the lowdown later.
Well,
but what's your opinion?
I figure if Lovecraft did not write it, he at least read it and knew all about it, because, he mentions this stuff all through there, and some of the names are almost exactly the same of some of these things in there, because I read the book, and, I've read a lot of Lovecraft stories, and it does seem to have a direct bearing on it.
You mean a connection to Lovecraft's other stories?
Yeah. In fact, if I remember right, there's even almost an indirect mentioning of Crowley in one of Lovecraft's stories.
Well, doesn't Lovecraft say, though, in the front of the Necronomicon, supposedly he claims that this is all for real and that he's merely translating these ancient manuscripts?
Well, the edition I have doesn't have anything by Lovecraft in it, but they do mention him an awful lot. But it's supposed to be sort of like Sumerian mythology, and I don't really know much about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Appreciate your comments.
Okay, thanks.
Nancy producing tonight, which means you'll talk to her first. Our local number, 578-1985. We have a line free, and 800-323-1985. All right. regarding the world of science question. Given that the Empire State Building, I should restate the question, I suppose. The question is, what would be the effect if a penny was dropped from the top of the Empire State Building, landed on someone's head? Would this be dangerous to the person traveling below, the pedestrian? Would it go right through, or what? Well, given that the Empire State Building is 1,250 feet tall and ignoring such factors as wind resistance, for the moment, a penny dropped from the top would hit the ground in approximately 8.8 seconds, having reached a speed of roughly 280 feet per second. This is not particularly fast. A low-powered 22 or 25 caliber bullet, to which a penny is vaguely comparable in terms of mass, typically has a muzzle velocity of 800 to 1,000 feet per second, with maybe 75 foot-pounds of energy. On top of this, we must consider that the penny will probably tumble while falling, and that the Empire State Building, like all tall buildings, is surrounded by strong updrafts, which would slow descent considerably. Thus, while you might conceivably inflict a fractured skull on some hapless New Yorker, the penny would certainly not go through just like that. For the record, the Empire State folks claim no one has ever dropped anything off their building. The youth of New York being what they are, I have my doubts about this, but that's their claim, and there is the answer. And you're on Livewire. Hi.
Yes. Do you believe that rock lyrics have effect on teenage suicides?
Well, you're referring specifically to the Ozzy thing, right?
Yeah. Well, and just rock lyrics in general.